Welcome to another episode of The Inquisitive Analyst. I'm your host, Marcus Udikang. It's the show that you know where we chat about business analysis and project management issues and some items on the periphery and the challenges and triumphs within those fields. It's inspiring, informative, and certainly very much inquisitive. My guest today is an up-and-coming professional speaker and devoted Toastmaster. He's published a book called The 5 Pillars of Effective Public Speaking, and he was a contestant at the Toastmasters International World Public Speaking Championship contest in August of 2021, this year. He's also a presentation skills trainer and public speaking coach. So please help me welcome to today's show, joining us all the way from Glasgow, Scotland, Kyle Murtagh. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you so much, Marcus. It's great to be here and looking forward to diving into some of the content.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Now, I thought I would ask you, first and foremost, how did you get started in public speaking and in Toastmasters?
Yeah, so I was studying psychology at a university here in Glasgow. And after 4 years, Marcus, I sort of found out I didn't want to be a psychologist. So then I started just looking around for different options. I started trying a bunch of different things. I did different jobs, different vocations, different hobbies. And one of the things I tried was public speaking. I didn't go along to a Toastmasters club, but something similar, a place where people practice their speaking outside of work. And I did my first ever table topic. For those who don't know, that's when you're asked a question off the cuff and you have to deliver a speech on it. And this was my topic, Marcus. Kyle, if a zombie apocalypse happened in Scotland, where would you go? So I thought to myself, where the heck am I? But somehow I found myself up there staring at all these people. And after what felt like an eternity, I said 2 words, the pub, and then sat right back down. So that was my introduction to public speaking. And really from that moment, I realized, especially when I sat back down after the 2 words, that I needed to do something about this, because the truth is, Marcus, no matter what you do in life, public speaking will find you. So you can either hide from it or you can go towards it. And I made a decision on that day that I was going to get better at this. And here we are 5 years on. I'm really enjoying this. I'm not just better at it. I love it.
I know exactly what you mean when it comes to being on the spot and making so a few errors. Let's play the devil's advocate for a moment and ask the not so obvious question. Why really should anyone be concerned with building up their public speaking skills?
I think it will help you in all forms of communication. If you think about communication as on scale, maybe over here we've got you having a conversation with your friend, a very low stake situation, low stake communication. And then all the way over here, we've got you delivering a presentation to over 100 people, right? If you can become comfortable doing this, speaking in front of many with confidence, then every other form of communication along that scale becomes easier. That conversation with a friend, easy. That job interview, simple. That networking event, I'm loving it, because you know how to nail one of the hardest forms of communication. So it trickles down into every aspect of your life and ultimately gives you the confidence to speak your mind. So that's always the reason I give people for looking to invest in their speaking.
The confidence to speak your mind. I love how you put that. Now, public speaking, you said, is your passion. What are 1 or maybe even 2 tips to becoming a comfortable, competent, and confident speaker?
Well, I always think it comes down to 3 things. So I'll give you an extra one in if that's okay, Marcus. I think to become better at speaking and confident at speaking, you need 3 key ingredients, okay? Number 1, you need to work on the skills. Okay, you need to learn the skills of what makes a good public speaker. That might mean watching footage, reading some books, learning from others, but you'll discover that there are some consistencies with great speakers. Great speakers use their body language in a certain way. They use their voice in a certain way, and you need to soak up that information like a sponge and bring it into your own game as much as you possibly can within remaining in your own style. The second thing which you need to do is you need to work on your mindset. Because often, Marcus, we are the problem, right? We can actually speak really well, but we hold ourselves back up here. Many of us have lots of different reasons why that is the case. And you've got to address them head on and eventually get past them so you can speak with confidence. But the big one, and this is the one everyone avoids, is practice. You've actually got to do it to get better at it. And that means putting yourself in a situation where you stand in front of an audience and you try to speak with confidence. You actually get that stage time. That's what will help you progress. So those three things, working on your mindset, your skills, and practicing, if you can do that weekly, you will be astonished about how far you will go with your speaking.
Now, practicing weekly obviously is imperative. What are a few other tips on how to best prepare for a presentation?
Yeah, preparation is very important. When I'm creating a workshop plan, for example, I always like to do a one-page plan. And what I'll do is I'll start off by figuring out how I'm going to end the presentation. I'll ask myself, what do I want my key message to be for the audience? And once I've defined that, then I can know what my call to action will be. And then I can go back to the start of the presentation and figure out how I'm going to open this presentation with the end in mind. And then I'll figure out what I need to say in the middle for my audience to understand my message, of course, with the end in mind. So I think creating a one-page plan like that can be really helpful. Once you've done that, then it's about rehearsing a little bit. It's about pretending you're speaking to the audience right now and setting up your environment, how it's going to be. If it's online, set it up the way it's going to be on the day and practice running through your presentation. And if you really want to be mean to yourself, record yourself and watch it back. And then you can identify what you're doing well, where you can potentially improve. And by doing those three things, creating the plan, then practicing, then recording and reviewing, you put yourself in the best position to succeed in your presentations.
And these days, it's so much easier to record yourself. Many years ago, when I got into public speaking, you didn't even have camera phones. So you'd have to set up a huge camera, an actual video camera. So it's so much easier to record oneself today too, I should mention.
100%. One of the main benefits of online, and I would implore anyone to do this, record yourself, watch it back, even get someone else to watch your footage, because we are our own worst critic. You'll find every single flaw, which could not even be seen by normal people, in your own presentation. So get an opinion from someone else as well, if you can. They will give you a realistic review of how you did as well, which is always very helpful.
And I think, yeah, like you said, the audience, the people who are watching you are so important in your presentation. What are, say, one or two ways to create that strong audience rapport and to hold your audience's attention with impact?
Yeah, I think in terms of rapport, one of the big questions people have, an audience has, when you stand up is, who are you? So you've got to answer that question in a compelling way. And the best thing to do is to share a story from your life which will connect with the audience, So for example, if you're speaking to children in a high school or teenagers in a high school, maybe you should share part of your story of your time in high school, so you can connect with the people in the room. So you can show those audience members, even though you're 20 years older than them, that you were like them at some point. They can connect with you more there. And the same goes if you're in a business environment, if you're in a different environment in your personal life. Always look to share a personal story which the room will be able to relate to. I think that does wonders in terms of building rapport with the room there.
Splendid. Now, presentation skill, or should I say presentation success, really has its root in a few key ingredients, like you've mentioned, the correct skills, the correct practice, even the mindset. Maybe you can explain a bit more about these key ingredients and what they encompass, the skills, the practice, and the mindset.
Absolutely. So mindset is figuring out what is holding you back with your speaking. If you have the fear, what is it? Are you afraid of other people's opinions? Are you afraid of the sensations you're feeling in the body? Are you afraid that you'll let yourself down? What is the trigger, the pain point for you personally? So you've got to do a little bit introspective thinking there and identify what that is. And then once you identify what it is, then you can find a way to get past that. Without me knowing that, I can't give you the advice because I don't know you, right? With the skills, that's a little bit more clear cut. So there's things in speaking that we definitely want to acknowledge. One of the things is structure. I mentioned there, learning how to structure a presentation so that it's more memorable and impactful for the audience. I would always recommend starting with the end, because then it makes the rest of the presentation easier and you know where you're going. That helps tremendously with that. And then with your body language, it's some of the key things, making sure you're making eye contact with the room, making sure you're using your facial expressions, your gestures, using your body to give yourself presence, even if you're online, so that you can have a greater impact on your audience. So those are some of the skills. And in my book, The 5 Pillars of Effective Public Speaking, I actually go through the 5 key skills, and I'll tell you some of them, what they are now. One's body language, voice, structure, clarity, and impact. So if you can get a strong base in those 5, you'll be a very good speaker.
Now, there's nothing better than a good vocal variety and body structure, like you mentioned, but we've all, even the best of the best, have those disastrous moments on stage, no matter how big or small your audience is. Now, that feeling of not doing very well can be devastating to some of us. How can we best overcome that type of disaster and bounce back to become bigger and better?
In the military, they do after action reports. Have you heard of them, Marcus?
Never have, no.
All right. So the idea here is that once an incident happens, right? Once an event happens, regardless if it went well or it went poorly, military commanders, they will do an after action report. They will review every single aspect of it. They'll identify what they did well, what worked on the day, but they'll also highlight what could have been done better. And I would always recommend, when it comes to your presentations, regardless if it went phenomenal or whether it went not very good, you should do an after action report too. Always pick out the things you did well. There is always something. Maybe just showing up was something you did well that day, right? Put that down on the list and make sure you do that again in future presentations, and also identify what could have been done to improve going forward. And once you identify what that could have been, and then you can look to make some adjustments. Ask yourself, okay, how am I going to make this happen going forward? What can I do to make sure that this problem does not happen again? So for example, if you froze when you were delivering a presentation, how can you get past that? What will you do the next time you freeze? Well, one thing you could do is you could take a pause and wait for your train of thought to come back. Or maybe you ask the audience a question, make them do some talking, and you can get your train of thought back. So always come up with a strategy once you've identified what could have been done to improve. But after action reports, I think they're golden, Marcus.
Is an after action report anything like an evaluation? In Toastmasters, we really emphasize the importance of feedback, and part of that feedback comes from a speech evaluator. So would I be correct in making that parallel?
Kind of, but in more depth, right? So maybe on my list, there'll be 10 things that I did well and 10 things that I did wrong. Really in depth look at it, at your presentation, analyzing every minute if it means a lot to you, so that you can improve. Because in Toastmasters, our evaluations are squeezed into 3 minutes, right? Yes. This is a much more long form, relaxed approach.
Splendid. Yeah. Splendid. Now, I like how you make that emphasis on that pregnant pause. The pause really is so important in public speaking, and it really gives time for us to reflect and think about what the speaker is talking about. Talking about pauses, let's make a pause and turn perhaps to virtual presentations. We touched upon that slightly earlier. Virtual presentations really are more popular today than ever before. What are some tips on preparing for virtual presentations?
I think a big thing which most people overlook is setup in presentations, in virtual presentations. Right now, I'm not in my usual environment, not in my home environment in Glasgow. I'm somewhere else because it's Christmas time, right? But I've still made some adjustments to ensure that my setup is fairly good for today's interview. And one thing I've done is I've made sure that my camera is on eye level with myself, right? And actually, maybe I'll just show you quickly, Marcus. Sure. I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the camera, but I've got a bunch of shoe boxes here to make sure that my camera is up high. And the reason I'm doing that is because when my camera's lowered down and I'm looking down at my audience, in fact, I'll just do it to show it for a second. This is not great for you. Now you're seeing up my nose. I don't even know what's up there. This is not good, right? But so it's much better when we're on eye level. So that's a big important thing when it comes to virtual presentations, making sure your setup's good, making sure you've got a little bit of lighting so you can be seen clearly. You want to make sure that your image is portraying trust, credibility. If you're in the shadows, I'm not going to trust you. I might run away from you, right? So that's very important as well. And then when it comes to the speaking itself, of course, making eye contact with the lens and making sure that this window that you have here is remaining active. Because as soon as the window becomes still, like it is now, the presentation becomes less engaging. But if I can keep it more active with my gestures, with my body language, maybe coming in, maybe coming a bit further away, then it's more engaging for my audience. So those are some things for virtual presentations.
The window of opportunity, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now you are founder of the company Confidence by Design, and that certainly appears to be like a window of opportunity. What types of services does Confidence by Design provide?
I've got 3 specific services, Marcus. One of them is team training. So this is where I work with an organization on their presentation needs, on their goals for their staff, and I create a program around what their staff's needs and wants are, and we make sure we get a good, solid end result. It could be more sales, it could be increased confidence for the team in general. The second service I have is one-to-one training. So this is when a manager or an executive or someone who's got a big presentation wants some feedback, wants some personal feedback. And I had a client recently who described this service as an MOT for their presentation. I do a full review. I look at their delivery, their body language, their voice, their content, whether the speech is structured well, it's making sense, the message is resonating, and also visuals as well. If they've got slides, I can review them too and provide advice so they're feeling confident come the big day of their presentation. And then the last service I have is a membership group. And this involves, it's called the Confidence Club, actually, the Confidence Club. And what we do is we meet up every month and cover a different topic within public speaking. So sometimes it's humor, sometimes it's selling while presenting, sometimes it's virtual speaking. But the idea is we learn about something new and then give members an opportunity to practice and receive high quality feedback at the same time. So those are the 3 things: team training, one-to-one training, and the membership group, the Confidence Club as well.
Wow, that sounds like a huge package, and I'm sure the price is just as good too. When it comes to your book, The 5 Pillars of Effective Public Speaking, maybe you can elaborate a bit more on, you mentioned the 5 pillars, maybe you can elaborate a bit more on the book and what is it about apart from the 5 pillars?
Yeah, well, I've actually got a copy here. I came prepared, Marcus. And this is what the book looks like, everyone. And the reason I created this book is when I was just beginning with my public speaking, when I stood up and I said 2 words and sat right back down, I searched online for something which would give me clear, tangible advice on my speaking. And I read some books, I listened to some books, but all of them were so complex, quite vague. I found them very hard to action. So once I became confident in my own speaking, developed my skills, had some success, I decided I wanted to create a book for not only those who are just starting, but those who are more advanced as well. A playbook full of skills which you can action straight away. So there's 5 key pillars. And like I mentioned before, they are body language, voice, structure, clarity, and impact. And in all 5 of those pillars, there's key action points that you can take which you can implement in your presentation straight away if you want to. So it's a playbook for knowing how to improve your presentation by little percentage points, Marcus, which of course make a big difference at the end of the day.
It's all about small steps over time and building like a building block. Actually, talking about building blocks and progressing slowly over time, any tips on how to become a better storyteller when you're public speaking?
Well, the best thing you can do is tell more stories while you're speaking, right? You need to do it to get better at it. So that would be my first piece of advice. If you want to get more into the technical side of storytelling, a big thing which I think people overlook in their stories is something I like to call the touch point. Now, the touch point is how you connect with the audience, because you must understand that a great story is when the audience see themselves in your story. As in, they're listening to your story and they're thinking, wow, that's my life, right? That's how you really have a powerful impact in a story. So what you have to do as the storyteller is you have to define a touch point, something in your story which the audience can relate to. Maybe it's part of your struggle. Maybe it's part of your story's conflict. But there has to be an ingredient there where I can see myself in your story. So important. And I think so many people overlook this. I overlooked it for so long, but it's something which makes a huge difference.
Wow. Now, these are some of the ideas that one should inherit, or one should practice in order to be able to stand out from the crowd. How, when we're speaking virtually, is there anything particular that we should do to stand out from the crowd? There's so many people on video today. How can we be more impactful virtually?
When in a lot of business presentations, at least, the go-to method when speaking virtually is to bring up the slideshow and to stay there, right? And then we're flicking through slides for the next hour or so. I think we really need to try and break away from that trend. Slides can be good for a moment. Show your slide for a moment and then take it away, because you want to make sure that you are the full screen, because like we mentioned before, the more active this is, the more engaging it is, and a still static slide, not very active. So I would encourage people to use a mixture of different media to keep their virtual audience engaged. Sometimes you're on the full screen. Maybe sometimes you have a prop. Maybe sometimes you show your slides, you show a video even. Have a variety of different tools to keep people engaged. And above all, make sure that you are on 11. And what I mean by that is you're giving it your all when you are speaking. You cannot afford to be reserved online, because it is so easy to avoid listening to someone when they're speaking online. I can switch off at any moment and get distracted by the fridge, my dog, anything at all, right? So you need to earn your audience's attention, and that requires you being at your best.
I certainly think that you've earned our audience's attention with a great few minutes filled with top tips on public speaking. If anyone in the audience wants to get in touch with you, Kyle, how can they do so?
They can find me in multiple different places. I'm on LinkedIn. Just type in Kyle Murtagh. There's not too many Murtaghs out there. That's Murtagh, and you'll find me on there. You can check out my website too, confidencebydesign.co.uk, and you'll find all the information that we discussed here in this podcast as well. And of course, you can get the book if you want to on Amazon. 5 Pillars of Effective Public Speaking. It's on all the Amazons if you want to check it out.
Splendid. I really want to thank you very much for coming on the show today. And any last words for public speakers out there on things that they should pay attention to?
It's your audience. Your audience are the most important people in the physical room and the virtual room. And we have to ask ourselves, how can we serve our audience better? So that would be the question I would ask yourself. How can I serve my audience better? Does it mean getting your camera up high so that you are looking good when you're speaking to them? Does it mean creating more variety in your virtual presentations with the media you're using? Does it mean changing your delivery up a little bit to be more engaging? How can you serve your audience better? That's the question I'll leave you with today.
Splendid. Well, thank you once again, Kyle, and I'm wishing you a great, fabulous, and happy day in not necessarily Glasgow, but anywhere else that you are at the moment. So thank you very much.
Leave it unknown for now.
Okay, great. Splendid. Well, thanks for being on the show. I certainly appreciate it.
My pleasure, Marcus. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Have yourself a great day. And now a word from our sponsors. The Lewis Institute provides an enterprise project management program that does more than just train PMs. It helps support them from the CEO level on down. These courses help certify project leaders and prepare them to pass the PMP exam.